say history has a way of repeating itself, but these 10 creepy facts prove that some things are better left buried in the past. Get ready to be captivated by stories you never knew existed. People have been burying the dead since before recorded history began. It is an essential rite shared by almost every culture. There are many unique beliefs about burial, and the human need to enter the deceased has led to many strange customs and events. Number 10. Suicide victims were buried at crossroads with stakes through their hearts. Suicide in England was once considered a heinous crime, and the punishment extended even after death. To the English, suicide was self-murder, and the perpetrators of unsuccessful suicides were charged as felons. The property of a suicide victim would be confiscated by the crown after death, which prompted families to disguise suicides to preserve their inheritance. Another deterrent to suicide was that the victim would be denied Christian burial rites. People were concerned this would affect their afterlife and prevent their resurrection. Friends or family would also have to bury the body themselves. The English enforced these laws to combat suicides, but also because they feared them. Superstition held that a suicide victim's spirit could return to haunt their home after death. Number 9. Thousands of dead under church floorboards. Before separate cemeteries were created in Old England, the preferred place to bury the dead was in churchyards. There was much profit to be made from this practice. A particularly famous and grim example of the profit from London's prolific dead occurred at Eman Chapel. The preacher of the church, who was motivated by profit, began to enter the city's dead at a rate of 30 per week beneath the floorboards of his church. The piles of dead bodies kept accumulating until there were over 12,000 bodies. This was unsustainable for a church basement, and compromises were made. Corpses were stacked to the ceiling, and the gases seeping through the floorboards caused parishioners to faint and children to be accosted by corpse flies during Sunday school. Number 8. Death abroad in the Middle Ages. In the Middle Ages, death abroad proved a particular problem because those of high rank wanted to be buried at home. Ancient attempts to preserve bodies included doctors, monks, or butchers removing a corpse's innards and burying them locally. The rest of the body was soaked in vinegar or treated with salt, and then wrapped in animal hides for transport. If the embalming technique was not successful, the transporters would be left with a horribly reeking corpse for their journey back home. In response to the failures of embalming techniques that tried to preserve the whole body, another form of preservation called mos tectonics was developed. This practice involved cutting the corpse into manageable pieces and boiling it. Number 7. Roman Egyptian burials. Rome was a vast multicultural empire. After a conquered area was occupied by Romans, the new rulers often married locals until it was difficult to tell conquerors from conquered. Even gods could blend together. Anubis was an amalgamation of Hermes and the Egyptian god Anubis. But along with its gods and DNA, ancient Egypt's burial practices also mingled with those of its Roman occupiers. While Roman dead were usually entombed or cremated, Romans in Egypt adopted the custom of mummification. These Roman mummies were not as well preserved as their older Egyptian counterparts. Roman Egyptians waited 40 days until the mummy was wrapped. This gave time for the corpse to decompose. This is why they did not stand the test of time, as well as older mummies that were embalmed only days after death. However, the Fayum mummy portraits remain. Number 6. The Towers of Silence. Zoroastrianism has many rules regarding the treatment of the dead. It is believed that corpses pollute the elements. Both burial and cremation are prohibited. This requires what some would consider unusual means to dispose of bodies. Ancient Zoroastrians built cylindrical towers atop hills where bodies were placed for birds to eat. They were called the Towers of Silence. The birds completely stripped the flesh from the bones in a matter of hours. The bones were then left to dry and bleach in the sun. After drying, they were tossed into a well in the center of the tower where they were reduced to powder. Sometimes lime was used to speed up the process. A filtration system then purified the water and let it drain out of the tower to feed the surrounding gardens. Number 5. The rise of cremation. While Romans practiced cremation regularly, it fell out of favor with the rise of Christianity. Even in the late 19th century, cremation was viewed as disgusting and blasphemous. Traditionalists in the US thought cremation was an attempt by non-believers to subvert the Christian doctrine of resurrection. Few believed that an all-powerful God could not raise a cremated body at Judgment Day, but cremation was seen as an insult to God's plan. Since Christian doctrine called for the resurrection of the body, which cremation destroyed, they believed that reducing a corpse to ashes spit in the face of God. However, cremation eventually grew in popularity. Abraham Lincoln's embalming presented a striking image, and families of deceased Civil War soldiers were likewise impressed by the preservation of the bodies of those killed in war. Number 4. 6 feet deep. Bodies were buried 6 feet deep for a number of reasons. 6 feet of soil would stave off the odor of the corpse, as well as make it difficult to easily rob a grave. However, the main reason was that less than 183 centimeters, 6 feet, it was easy for an animal to savage the body. Modern graves are usually dug around 137 centimeters deep, 4.5 feet. Modern caskets are heavier than the older pine boxes that were once used to bury the dead. They are also sealed, rendering the need to protect them against animals no longer important. But while 6 feet was not the minimum, it was by no means the maximum either. In large European towns where space was limited, multiple interments were once made in a single grave. Number 3. The many horrors of the plague pits. The fact that there were plague pits in London during the Black Plague is well known, but they were even more horrible places than many realized. Aside from being simple holes where the dead were tossed, they terrified London residents for many reasons besides their association with death. Several of the plague pits were dug on unconsecrated ground, and burials proceeded without any religious ceremony. Londoners living during the plague feared not only for their lives, but also their afterlives, as well. Visitors were allowed at the pits. This was done partially to prevent the spread of disease, but also because many plague victims on the verge of death would simply throw themselves in. Number 2. Burial. An emotional need. Burials have been around since before Homo sapiens emerged as the dominant species on Earth. At least 50,000 years ago, Neanderthals were burying their dead. One Neanderthal burial site in Iraq suggests that they may have even laid their dead to rest in beds of flowers, though that particular aspect is still a matter of archaeological debate. Neanderthals have also been buried with items they used in life. However, since burial goods have only been found in later graves, it's been suggested they may have learned it from the ancestors of modern humans. The ancestors of humans were burying their dead with burial goods as early as 100,000 years ago. One of the oldest examples found is in the Skull Cave in Palestine, where a hunter was buried with a boar jaw in his hand. Number 1. The Ash Eaters. The Yanomami people of the Amazon have no custom of burial. They cremate their dead and then eat their ashes. It's done to save the deceased soul. The Yanomami believe that once a person dies, their soul goes into a kind of limbo. It can then migrate to a different kind of being, which is why certain birds, possible candidates for reincarnated souls, are not killed. They believe that a soul can only leave the state of limbo if it is cremated, mixed with banana paste, and eaten preferably by its relatives. Once inside their bodies, the soul can be freed and reach salvation. That doesn't mean the ritual is carried out immediately. They usually wait until a day of festivity to consume the ashes, leaving the dead soul in limbo and their ashes in the house until then. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the depths of history's creepiest secrets. If you found these facts as fascinating and spine-tingling as we did, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more captivating content. If you're hungry for more knowledge about the mysteries of the past, be sure to hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. And remember, history is full of surprises, both dark and enlightening, so stay curious and keep exploring.